Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with the post-match chat. Tonight we've got Steve Wraith and Neil Mitchell and Malcolm McDonald. Good evening, lads.
Evening, Steve.
Evening, Steve.
Good evening to you. And, well, it's a real foursome tonight, isn't it?
It is. It is. Malcolm, what did you make of tonight's game?
I thought Newcastle were awful, to be honest, particularly up front. There was no life, no punch whatsoever. And, you know, Joe Linton, he got a goal on Sunday simply by turning and sprinting. And he sprinted into the box. He left the defender in his wake, got the touch, and in it went. I never saw him, never mind raise a sprint, just get into a bit of a gallop. Just never saw it from him. And you would have thought that last Sunday, that goal, it would have really G'd him up. And it doesn't seem to have had any effect on him whatsoever. And Almiron, I have to say, I feel that he's just going backwards at a very fast rate. He doesn't seem to be able to join in the play. He's totally individual and not very good at doing an individual role, as it so happens, and really benefits the team not a jot. He did one good thing in the game that I saw, and that was in the first half on the left-hand side, and he knocked a cross that fizzed across the 6-yard box and found Joe Linton having a stroll yet again.
Did the heat play its part tonight, Mal, do you think?
Sorry, did who?
Did the heat play its part, the temperature? It was, I mean, big a hot day in Newcastle today. It's been, close to 28, 29 degrees.
Yeah, but the conditions are the same for the other side. You know, so if it's affecting Newcastle more than it is Aston Villa, then something's wrong.
Yeah, that's a good
going on at Newcastle.
It's a fair point, Mal. It's a fair point.
It's all evened out between the two sides.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Mal, 100%. One other thing I want to ask you, the goal that we conceded, Dubravka, of course, I've watched it back a few times. Is it a goalkeeping error or is it Shelvey at fault? Is he because he's standing in the way? Has there been a miscommunication between the two of them?
Well, firstly, I think it's Shelvey because he's there on the post. If the ball comes, you make sure you make contact with it and get it as far away as possible. And he didn't do that. And he looked as if he looked to me. He played quite well through the game, but just on that incident, it looked as if he wasn't really bothered. You know, that it was Dubravka's fault, and I didn't think it was because Shelvey he swung his boot, missed by a mile, and I think the swinging of his boot has put Dubravka off. So I feel that the blame should lie more at Shelvey's door than Dubravka's. But have you noticed how Newcastle, they don't have somebody on the far post for set pieces?
Yeah.
You know, so if it does go beyond the near post man and the goalkeeper, somebody on the far post can come across a yard or two and clear it then. But there's nobody on the far post. And I just feel it's leaving the goal line a bit open.
Steve Bruce got his substitutions right, though. He bringing Dwight Gale on and Joe Linton off and Andy Carroll on. What did you make of that? I mean, it was almost an immediate effect, Mal.
Absolutely right. He took the right people off. Well, when I say the right people, it was a shame for Richie because I think he always does so well for the side. But he's got an injury, which how long he's going to be out for, I really don't know. it didn't look good the way they were applying the ice. But Andy Carroll, he makes such a difference when he comes on, and he's showing Joe Linton to be a really, really poor player, because he just changes the game. All of a sudden, you see the defenders with fear on their faces rather than an easy-ozy attitude when they're marking Joe Linton. And good for Dwight Gale. I thought he took his goal tremendously. Took it absolutely beautiful. He sort of a little dummy and got the goalkeeper to cover his near post and then just slotted it across past his feet. And I thought it was a super goal. But having scored and having gone 1-0, did you notice how everybody started to get shaky? You know, all of a sudden they were all on edge, it seemed to me. And Aston Villa sensed it and they just took the game over. And I didn't understand why, because the defence have been playing pretty well. They had a great game against Sheffield United, and I thought they were doing well. They were the stronger part of the side for the first hour and a quarter, and then having gone a goal up, it was almost as if they were having a little panic up.
Yes, Mal, you're right. Couple of comments coming in already. Paul B says he thought St Maximin was the best player on the park. Lucky to get draw as Villa finished the stronger. Claire Brown says Joe Linton, I just don't get what he's doing there. No passion whatsoever. Which you've agreed with, Mal.
Claire. Couldn't agree more.
Claire also says, look at the change in dynamics as soon as Carroll came on. I usually like Shelby, but it wasn't his night. Fab substitutions. Sean Foreman asks, is Carroll worth a new contract? 5 assists this season and offers more than a certain someone. He's having a go at Joe Linton. And Carl Denley says Joe Linton's a poor man's Ami Obi, which I think you not get many arguments from us. Let's bring Neil Mitchell in, the Geordie dentist from all the way across in the Middle East. Good evening, Neil. What was your take on tonight's game?
Well, I think Malcolm's touched on one thing there straight away. I think there was a couple of crosses actually that got fizzed across the box, and Joe Linton was barely on the penalty spot, and the ball's flying across the 6-yard box. And if he had anything like a striker's instinct, he'd have been further in. Imagine Malcolm running on crosses like that. You would have been 2-0 up in no time. I think the change to 4-4-2 got with a goal, but there's long been question marks about whether Shelby can play in a midfield 2 and a 4. And I think that's why we got overrun. We started to sort of look shaky because we suddenly were outnumbered in the middle of the park. And I've heard this said by quite a lot of people that if you're going to play a 4-4-2, Shelby cannot be in that midfield because he can't cope with it. And I think that's partly why we started to look so shaky in the second half. Going 1-0 up, we should have dominated. Really, it was there for the taking, and we disappeared inside the shells a little bit. The goal we conceded, Shelby's barely dangling his foot out. So if you're on the post, you either put your foot through it or you just don't let the keeper deal with it.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
I can imagine sort of like the guys at Wall's End saying to me, if I'd done something like that on the post at the back, I wouldn't have been playing the next 2 weeks. That would have been it. It's as simple as that. And it's frustrating because you cannot say we deserve 3 points out of that performance. Would I have taken 4 points out the first 2 games back? Absolutely, because it were 39 points. With the fixtures we've got left, we should get well past that magical 40 figure. We're only a point behind Arsenal, and nobody's saying that they're in trouble. So it starts to take one pressure off, I guess. But it's frustrating when the game was there to be won, and we should have won it. We should have seen it out from 1-0 up with 77 minutes. We should have seen that game out.
I saw on social media, the usual stuff that happens when we've got a full St James's Park, and that is Newcastle won on Saturday, as we know, on the weekend, against Sheffield United. Great win. A lot of people getting carried away on social media as if Bruce has suddenly new Messiah, and everything was great. Well, I even saw people talking about Champions League, for God's sake, this season, and it do, that it just sums it up. Our club is a madhouse at times, isn't it? I mean, let's not get too carried away. Look, Steve Bruce has done well, and I see we've constantly had this Bruce versus Benitez thing this season, and Sky highlighted it last night. Benitez at this time last season was on 34 points. Bruce is on 38. There seems to be an agenda going on behind the scenes. Keep Bruce in the job. Neville was on his high horse about him at the weekend, saying Steve Bruce deserves the job under the new owners. But what did that tell us tonight, Neil, about Newcastle United? Where are we at with this team, and where are we at with the manager? Is Steve Bruce worth the chance with any new owners?
Look, we've talked about it regularly on my Friday's show, and I'm sure we'll talk about it regularly through the remainder of the season. We've all said to a man, Bruce deserves the credit due for what he's done this season to secure where we're at. But is he the man to take the team forward? No. I don't see anybody who can genuinely put a hand on the heart and say, I think this is the man that can take this team forward when new owners come in and when a cash injection comes in. I don't think that. I think on the evidence of tonight, the substitutions, you can praise some, but you can question others. Also, the timings of them could we have made changes earlier on, because bearing in mind we've got all these games in short period of time and the extra cup game. We spoke, I think, at the weekend about the worry of muscle and soft tissue injuries. There's Richie gone off. Thank God it wasn't St. Maximin, because he looked he was working hard, but he was tired at the end of that game. And I don't think it would be fair to put him through all of that, just to see him pull up with a calf or a hamstring injury again, and then that's it for the rest of the season. So I think there's games like today after Sheffield United. If Sheffield United gave us answers, we've had more questions today, I think.
Yeah, fair enough. Steve, we're going to come to you now if you want to unmute yourself. Unknown says, let's be honest, over 90 minutes, Villa are better. Joe Linton is awful. My mind is 100% made up. He's useless. Get rid of him. Maximum will be safe when we get taken over. So will Dubravka, and Shelby is finished. Fair play. Steve, what did you make?
It's fair play. Yeah.
What did you make of today's game then, Steve?
You know what? A total contrast to Sunday, wasn't it? I thought we came out again in a way very slowly, very quietly, and then we gradually got into the game. We have this tendency to allow teams to play the ball in front of us and not seem to be interested in trying to get the ball off them, and then try and catch them on the break almost. And that we've seen it time and time again at St James's Park, and it's just a repeat, really. But I think the disappointing is that you go 1-0 up and then you sort of relinquish the lead, not only in the manner that you did, but without anything that showed you that you were going to come back. That you thought, right, well, I'm going to roll my sleeves up the last 10 and we're going to go back at them. You handed the impetus straight back to them. And once they got the goal, they were the better team. We had a couple of scuffed efforts. All the way through the game, Dubravka was never really in any sort of threat, was he? There wasn't sort of, he wasn't tipping them over the bar and hitting them around the post and, diving at people's feet. There was no clear-cut chances for them. And that probably makes it doubly more annoying that we didn't come away with the 3 points. We allowed them to play football. Grealish had the run of in the second half. He is one of those annoying little players, isn't he? That, you just have to go near him and he'll go over. A slightest little nudge and he's down. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the fact that he is a very, very good player. But again, you give free kicks away on the edge of the box, you're giving corners away, and you're doing it from a position where you are relatively comfortable. And so that for me is very annoying and disappointing. Because I'd like to have seen us hit that 40-point mark, get over the 40 points and then see what this team could do and see what Bruce can do with it, But, now we've got to wait, another week, 10 days, something like that. I'm not sure when the next game is, probably a week on Wednesday, a week today. We've got the cup game in between, so we've got to hang around, and we've got to see whether we can hit that point and then give Bruce the opportunity to, let's see this attacking football that apparently he's notorious for.
Steve, I've got to ask you, you've got an Emirates hat on. Most fans watching will be wanting to know, is that a sign? Is the takeover closer?
No, I must have. I got this. We've been out in the sun all day, trying to keep the sun off my face, and this was the hat I was wearing, and I just put it on when I came in the house and forgot I had it on. To be perfectly honest, my daughter works for Emirates anyway, so I'm plugging her. Keeping her.
So you're wearing a freebie.
That's right.
Good stuff. Matt, come to some more comments here. Jay Roundtree says, they were the stronger side tonight. We were happy to let them have the possession. We were unlucky with a few chances, but once we go 1-0 up, we started dropping off and losing concentration is criminal. Sean
Couldn't
again
agree more.
He says Shelby is inconsistent because on his day he is one of the best on the pitch. I would disagree. I'm not a huge Shelby fan. Good sprinters don't always make strikers. The only one that ever did is on your show now. A compliment there for you, Mal. Josh from York.
Talking about you, Steve.
Definitely not me. Josh from York says I'd rather have Yannick, Toure or Sorensen playing over Joe Linton. Hopefully Bruce starts Gale and Carroll for the remaining games, provided they stay fit. What do you think of that, Mal? Josh has got in before I was going to ask you that question. Is the time right to give Andy Carroll a start ahead of Joe Linton? And do you think Steve Bruce is brave enough to make that decision?
Yeah, we've had this conversation in recent days, haven't we? Is Andy Carroll fit enough to actually start a game? That we keep seeing him come on for the last 15 or 20 minutes, and he changes a game without any shadow of a doubt. He changes it for the better. And it just makes me wonder, why on earth aren't you starting?
Yeah.
Why? That if he can make that difference in a game when it's over an hour old, why not do it from the very start and do it all the way through? Okay, so maybe he doesn't make the 90, but as long as he spends an hour on the pitch and can really cause the damage that we've been seeing from him in short spells, and so I question his fitness. Is he? I'm not saying that he hasn't trained hard enough or anything like that. I mean, I'm talking about is he prone to injuries? Is his historical injury list holding him back now? And he's going to continue to hold him back. What we need is an Andy Carroll who can be doing the best part of 90 minutes every game.
Just news coming in from St James's Park. Steve Bruce has said that Isaac Hayden and Matt Ritchie have both suffered soft tissue injuries, but Steve Bruce says they were taken off as a precaution. So that's good news in one respect.
Yeah. When you said that they had suffered soft tissue injuries, I was wondering whether it was before the game or during it.
Vision Dom says disappointing result in my opinion today. Joe Linton was disappointing. Momentum should have been capitalised upon. Carroll done well when he came on. Carl says every team needs a Ritchie, which is in response to Claire Brown saying that Ritchie is a little pocket rocket. He has a massive presence on the pitch. I would definitely agree. Carl Denley's a Grealish fan. I've seen a lot of people saying they would love having Grealish if the takeover went through. Got to be honest, I'm not so sure because of his off-field antics. Unknown says he's enjoying the lockdown interviews and he'd like to see Steve Bruce on. I'm not sure Steve Bruce would come on to this show. I've got to be perfectly honest. Mitch, on to you, mate. Basically, what we've been discussing there, just Andy Carroll. Would you give him a start against Man City at the weekend?
Well, I think what Malcolm was saying was pretty much what was going through my mind, that if you've got a player who can come on and make such an impact, why can't you say to him, give us an hour? Give us your best hour. Run yourself into the ground. Give us 60 minutes. Make the difference. Be the difference. And then let somebody else finish it off for you. And it would it begs a lot of questions, just really from a medical point of view. If he doesn't have that in him, why? Why hasn't it been identified? Or if it has been identified, what steps are being taken to rectify it? I know he's had an absolute catalogue of injuries over time. And they do take that toll, and sometimes, if it's not treated right in one part of the body, it affects somewhere else.
His contract ends at the end of this season, once the fixtures are up. Would you give him another contract?
Me personally, I wouldn't. Neil, would you?
I would want to see more out of him in the remaining games.
Yeah,
I'd want him to see what I'd want to see what Malcolm wants to see out of him, and if he can prove to me he's got 60, 70, 80, maybe he's even a full 90 in him over a consistent period of time, then he's earned that contract.
Yes.
And until that time, there's got to be, I'm sure there's probably other options out there, unfortunately, longer term. I know we want to get wistful and have this big Geordie lump up front because we can see what he can do. We know when he's on it, he's unplayable.
Yeah.
When he's on it, that goal he created today, that's the kind of thing he can do, and he can do it all day long, or he could. We need to see him do it all day long.
Steve, same question to you, mate. What do you think of the Andy Carroll situation? I mean, would you give him a new contract? Is he worth one?
He's not worth one, to be perfectly honest, because I honestly don't think you'd get 60 minutes out of him on a regular basis. And the same goes for Dwight Gale, by the way. People talking about a partnership there. I mean, neither of them seem to have a full game in them. I mean, that's the so frustrating aspect of when you look at the squad and you look at the positions that we're weak in, and we've got players there who, seem to really, really struggle for fitness and have done for 2 seasons now. If you look at, Carroll's been struggling for fitness since the day he left Liverpool, hasn't he? And Gale's never played. He had a run in the West Brom team. He's never had a run with us. And even when he did have a run with where he was in and out, there was, hamstrings here and cartilage, all that type of thing. Moving into the new era with new owners, you need new players. You certainly need new strikers. For me, and the same goes for Joe Linton, to be perfectly honest. It's wearing thin now. This situation with him, he's lack of goals. He's lack of. I mean, people are saying, "Oh, he's putting the effort in." Yeah, well, we put the effort in going to the match every week, as well. There's effort and there's effort, isn't there? And quite frankly, the effort that he's putting in is having absolutely no sort of use to the team. Quite frankly, there's got to be change, Steve. There's got to be change, and those are the positions, the first positions that needed sorting. It's strikers. Yeah.
Claire Brown's made a valid point. She went, there's no doubt Grealish is a good player, but I sneezed earlier and he fell over. He fell over when I was doing the Hoover and I knocked the telly and he fell over. Paul B, he says, Bruce says Carroll's in the best shape of the season. Yeah, well, I have heard that. Barry Hogan says Steve Bruce won't take him forward. Think who Benitez would have bought for 40 million. We need a decision just one way or the other about the takeover. I think we will get one, Barry. Do you think it would be good to sign 100?
I don't think it's that far away, Steve.
No, I think you're right, Mal. I think you're right.
From what I'm hearing down in London, there's a lot of pressure for this takeover to go through fairly promptly now.
Yeah, I think you're right, mate. We're going to touch on that more tomorrow night when we do a live at 6 o'clock. But I think I can safely say that it's not too far away. But I think they'll announce it when they're ready. And even if everything's done and it's the money's exchanged and the Premier League have said yes, I think the timing will be key next for the new owners. Liam Parkinson says, no doom and gloom. I thought we kept the ball okay, better than we have watched at St James's Park this season. Josh asks a question to the panel. He says, Manquillo or Yedlin? So, Mal, I'll ask you first.
Personally, I think Manquillo, he is a better defender than Yedlin. And when he gets forward, he's a bit more positive than Yedlin. Yedlin's he's a bit like a fish out of water. He doesn't quite know what to do, and defensively he is absolutely dreadful. And it's a shame because he's so quick, and I think it's great pace going to waste.
Neil, same question to you, Manquillo or Yedlin?
Same answer, Manquillo. I think we said this in the show last Friday. I think he's developed as a player over the last year. I think he offers more going forward and in defending than Yedlin. I think he's a cannier player. I think he does a lot more than people give him credit for. I like Yedlin's attitude. I like his spirit. I like his enthusiasm. I find it interesting in some of the training games in the lead up to the restart. He seemed to be being played on the right-hand side of midfield, and I suspect that's where we might see him in games going forward, particularly if we're looking to rest out Richie and give other players a rest here and there.
Steve, same question to you, mate. Manquillo or Yedlin?
You know what? The problem that Yedlin has is that if we want balance and we've got Rose on the other side, we need the Manquillo on the right for the defensive capabilities. That's the issue. Manquillo. The other problem you've got is that Rose and San Maximum, the partnership's not quite there yet, and we're having to see Richie moving across at times to fill a gap, just to tighten it up on that particular side and give us an option on the other side. And I think that, honestly think the problem with Yedlin or Manquillo is whoever's on the other side. And I think if you've got a more firm left back, then I think there's an opportunity for Yedlin. But I think at the moment, I think Manquillo's filling that spot because Rose is there, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, okay. I'm just going to go through a few more points. We're coming down to the last 5 minutes of the show. We've got Peter Robson says, let's be honest, we all thought we'd lose to Sheffield United and win against Villa. So 4 points isn't a bad haul, which is the point that Neil made slightly earlier. Stuart here says, I don't think Bruce or Carroll will be there after this takeover. They'll be out along with a few others. Vision says, Saudi Arabian government have taken the right steps about piracy. I believe it's a matter of time. Unknown says to Josh York, he says, Yedlin is a liability. Liam Parkinson says, very optimistic about takeover. Gale and Carroll are decent centre forwards. You know, again, it's all about opinions. Joe Linton on loan to Sunderland for £3 a week. I think you've been a bit generous, Peter. Spackoid says, it just shows how much Mike Ashley's reign has infected the whole club when we can't finish off teams like Villa and finishing mid-table is viewed as some sort of achievement. Great point, and it's a point that Neil Mitchell makes on every single show we do. It's the Ashley effect, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah, absolutely. We've become Stockholm Syndrome captives to the whole regime, and it affects the entire way the fan base thinks and acts and interacts. And that's the frustration for all of us.
Yeah,
it is. It's such a shame, isn't it, that it's great football club, Newcastle United. Its aim these past few seasons has been 40 points each season, just to stay safe. That has been the be all and end all, and it's and of course that the way that they've operated in the transfer market, who they've brought in, it's been a side put together simply to survive, and I find it such a shame. I really do. But I think though that once this takeover goes through, that we are going to see one of the most exciting periods that this football club has ever known in its history.
Yeah, I agree. Lads, the clock has beaten us. Malcolm MacDonald will be back with me tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. And then on Friday, we'll have the lads, Mitch and Steve, back at 6 o'clock on Friday night for a Friday night special. But look, lads, 4 points out of those first two games. I know I'm happy, and we're a point closer to staying up and being in the Premier League for the new owners. So just want to thank you for coming on at short notice again, and speak to you in the next couple of days.
All right, thanks, Steve. And thanks, guys. It's been.
I'm struggling to get a question there, Steve.
We're just saying bye, Steve.
Like, it's just a little bit. Get a little bit of feedback from somewhere. I was going to ask you. Sorry.
had a few issues with your sound. That's why we'll keep muting you.
Christ, Norman Collier, Jesus.
I was going to ask you guys, did anyone hear them announce the attendance today? I heard them say 52,231. Because I haven't got nobody back yet, apparently.
That's a good way to end it. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Look forward to seeing Malcolm McDonald at 6 o'clock tomorrow and the guys back on Friday at 6 o'clock. And thanks everyone for joining in. Hope you all enjoyed it. Please give it a like and give it a share and give the channel a subscribe. Take care, guys. Good night.
Good night.
Cheers, fellas.